I think the biggest fallacy when it comes to indie hackers or just coders or people who build things online and want to start online businesses is essentially the problem that they think they can automate sales, okay? And I think this also comes sort of from ecom, where ecom guys will post their Lamborghini and be like, dude, just fucking uh oh, just fucking build a store and just people will come to it, run ads and then you'll get sales and you'll make $1 billion. And the problem occurs when you try to do this yourself, okay? Because a profitable e-com store is basically like a unicorn. If you can be profitable, especially as you scale up ad spend, then you can basically scale it unlimited as long as you can keep the ads being profitable. But obviously e-com is extremely hard, and it's because it's hard to get that automated funnel. So I'm going to explain a few reasons why and how you should approach things instead. My first point is this. I actually forgot about this the other day because I'm building this company that generates websites for local businesses. And I came to kind of a dilemma where I was like, dude, I'm going to have to sell these websites myself. I don't like selling. I don't know too many people who really enjoy sales, but, and I don't want to have to do it. And so I was thinking, like, wow, maybe I should just do a different business. And I'm so glad I had this realization because there is really no way to avoid it, and it's actually what you have to do. Okay, so I'm going to explain that. So essentially, what we'll talk about is first start manually and scale later. This is a pretty popular kind of startup thing in the startup world, is do things that don't scale. Okay, this is a quote by Paul Graham or the Stripe Brothers or some shit like that. And essentially what it means is you start out by doing things manually, and really only through that do you actually earn the right and the ability, frankly, to automate things. Okay, um, because what this does is when you do the sales yourself, you actually learn what the sales should look like. Okay, so there's kind of this misconception where you can just set up, like the ecom store example, you could just set up a store, set up some ads, and it'll just generate profit consistently. But what the problem is, so I worked with auto detailers, okay? And so they would generate, let's say they generate like 20 leads, okay? They would generate 20 leads in, uh, or you know what? Let's say $20 leads, okay? So you generate a lead for $20, and let's say that you can convert, I don't know, 10% of these leads into a sale, okay? And if you're selling something for $1,000, actually, we don't need that yet. So 10 times 20 would be $200 per acquisition, or just call it per sale. And if you're selling something for $1,000, then that means that your gross profit is going to be, all right, 1,000 total. And then, oh, by the way, if you're not watching this at 2 times speed or 1.5 times speed, that's what I highly recommend. I always forget to say that, but you should never watch videos at 1x speed. I mean, your time is more valuable than that. So $1,000 total, $200 per sale. That means you make $800 in gross profit. Okay, and one thing, especially now that I'm working on building websites, is I always get people who are in this kind of niche, and this is what their numbers look like when they run paid ads, and they say, dude, I want to put like a payment link on my website so that people can just go to my website and just buy a service and just book it. And I always say the same thing. I always say, great, that's really cool. It would be awesome if that worked. The problem is these numbers change, and at the end of the day, if you're only getting $800 per customer and you're spending $200 to acquire a customer, your LTV to CAC is only 4 times, and that's not enough margin. Your LTV to CAC is essentially what defines how successful a business can be, especially in the long term. Because a SaaS business might have a high number, but if they have a lower kind of, first month revenue, then they're going to need a lot more money to get customers so they can get that LTV out of more customers. But essentially, it's all a math equation. And if we instead of selling people, instead of calling them up and talking to them, if we still have $20 leads, but this time we send them to a landing page and we just expect them to go through a funnel and buy, we'll probably see our conversion rate drop to about 2%, especially for something like $1,000 where there's, multiple different places to get it and a lot of research. There is probably going to be closer to like 1/5 of what it was before. And now, instead of a 10% conversion rate, instead of it costing $200 to get a sale, you're going to be paying more like $1,000 per sale, okay? And I've done better than this, selling kind of lower ticket items, but it wasn't profitable still because I was selling at such a low price that the fulfillment became a nightmare. And so $1,000 a sale in this example, you end up basically same price, then you end up at $0 gross profit, which is fine if you're running a charity, but you need to eat, right? And so this is the fundamental problem with automated sales, is that you end up with worse numbers, and your numbers can't be this, right? You need an LTV to CAC ratio that is greater than 1, ideally greater than 5 or 10 or something. And now let's talk about earning the right to automate, okay? So there's something that happens in sales where a lot of people misunderstand sales, and I'm not the best salesperson, so I can't perfectly explain it. But essentially, people believe that sales is all about persuasion, and this is sort of true. But persuasion has like a negative connotation, okay? And so they think that, yeah, if I persuade someone, then I like convince them that they need to buy this thing, and I tell them why it's so great and all this stuff. And the fact of the matter is, that's not how you sell. The way that you sell is actually questions, okay? You essentially, the best kind of methods of selling are asking customers questions that get them to explain to themselves why they like the product or why they want the solution. Because if you just tell them, people don't listen to themselves very often, much less someone else, okay? If you just tell them, oh, this is great for you because it does this, blah, 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 they're not going to listen. But if you ask them, so why do you feel like this product would actually help you? See how that question only has positive answers? And because you're asking them, they're going to answer, and they're going to say, well, I feel like this part would help and this would be good and blah, blah, blah. And so instead of saying, do you think this would help you, which is obviously a leading question, you just ask, why do you feel like this would help you? And what that does is, instead of trying to convince people and instead of just trying to tell them why they need your product, you actually learn what they think is valuable. Because you have to know why someone's interested in your product. I mean, there's so many people, basically every startup has pivoted in some way where they release an initial product and they say, oh, this is going to be so great for this reason. And they find an entirely other reason, or an entirely different reason, that people find the product valuable. And so you have to have these conversations. You have to figure out what people value and why they're actually interested in your product. Even if you don't sell anything at first, just learning and having these conversations and figuring out what objections do they have, what questions do they have, what do they find valuable. All these things you're going to have to understand in order to build your funnel. Because a funnel, and I'm talking in terms of like an automated funnel, this is a little bit different with AI and stuff where you might be able to build trust through text, or an AI caller, although personally I don't think they're really to the point yet. Actually, there was a funny example I got on a phone with an AI caller, and I was like, hey, can you please give me a React component? Like this is a React component. I was like, can you please give me a React component? And it just started explaining this. And I'm like, okay, I mean, it's pretty obvious, to figure out if these are AI or not. So, and that's just a small thing. That's just a funny thing, but you can easily tell from the way they talk. So, to build out this funnel, you have to understand objections, like objections, probably FAQ goes into that, because FAQs are a really good way to kind of handle objections. Like you probably want some sort of VSL that's going to get them, interested. And there's all these things that go into a funnel that you don't think about. And even the ad itself, the ad is the top of your funnel. This controls your kind of cost per lead or cost per click. And you need to get that dialed in, because if you can make this twice as good, then all of a sudden your CAC is going to go down and your profit is going to go up. And so So basically, you have to have these conversations. This is the whole point of the video, is that this is a process. This is not, you can't skip this. You can't do that. You can't just skip the process of learning about your customer and what they want, right? You have to do the work, and you have to figure out what the funnel would need if it's able to sell. And there's a lot of products that aren't going to work to be sold automatically, at least for a long time. Like, there's some businesses, Apple can sell very high ticket products without salespeople, but Apple has such a heavy branding. I mean, there's lines outside the door of every Apple store when a new product is released, and that's for a reason. That's because people are excited about the products and they want it. If you get people who are frustrated about your sales process and say, "This is taking too long. Can you just send me a payment link and I can pay and get the product?" Then you deserve to automate the product. But until that point, until people are asking you, or until it's taking too long, or until it becomes a giant kind of barrier and you can afford to actually change these numbers drastically, it doesn't make any sense to automate your sales, okay? And this might mean you have to charge slightly more, you have to learn a little bit about sales, but this is a quote that I like to look at from Naval: "Learn to sell, learn to build. If you can do both, you will be unstoppable." A lot of people just focus on the building. There's this kind of idea of build it and they will come. And hopefully that's just a fallacy. That's kind of a stupid joke at this point. Selling is half of this equation, In fact, it's probably more, because you can sell something without having a product, but you can't build something and not sell it, right? That's just completely pointless. All right, so here's my call to action. If you're just starting a business or a project, forget about automating sales. Don't expect that you're going to be able to do it. Expect that you're going to have to be selling them to people. It's not that bad. And just focus on selling and learning from your customers. And then later, you can think about automating things, and you'll actually know what people need to hear, what they need to see, what questions they need answered in order to buy. So that's the video. Smash that like button. Hit subscribe for more gaming tutorials. Yeah, see you in the next video.